The hidden threat. In the vast expanse of the Orion Cygnus arm of the Milky Way galaxy, the powerful Galactic Empire held sway over thousands of star systems and trillions of sentient beings. At its apex stood the formidable Emperor Zaxxon, a ruthless but cunning leader who had inherited control of the empire from his ancestors and was determined to expand its reach ever further. Deep within the imperial palace on the capital world of Thrallaxis Prime, Emperor Zaxxon strode through ornate corridors and into his grand throne room. His advisors and courtiers bowed deferentially as he passed. Settling onto the massive obsidian throne, Zaxxon turned his piercing gaze to the matter at hand. "What news from the frontier sectors?" Zaxxon asked, his voice echoing through the cavernous chamber. A nervous imperial administrator stepped forward, datapad in hand. "Your Imperial Majesty, our scouts have completed their survey of the Orion Spur. They found many primitive species, nothing that could pose a threat to the Empire." However, the administrator hesitated. "Out with it," Zaxxon snapped impatiently. "I haven't got all cycle." "Yes, Majesty," the administrator said. "There is one species that has shown a concerning level of technological advancement: the humans of Earth. They have achieved interplanetary spaceflight, and their system defenses are robust." "Earth," Zaxxon mused, leaning back on his throne. "What do we know of these humans?" As the administrator droned on about the scouting reports on humanity, a very different scene was unfolding a dozen light-years away on Earth itself. In a secure underground bunker, a group of Earth's most powerful leaders had gathered for a top-secret meeting. At the head of the conference table sat Admiral Nora Voss, steely-eyed commander of the Earth Defense Force. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Voss began, "I'll get straight to the point. For the last 50 years, ever since we discovered irrefutable proof of intelligent alien life, Earth has been preparing for the worst. While maintaining the illusion of a peaceful, low-tech society, we have secretly poured trillions into the EDF Black Fleet project." Murmurs rippled through the room. Though all present were part of Earth's hidden leadership, few knew the full extent of the Black Fleet. Admiral Voss called up a hologram, which coalesced into the gleaming shape of a Trident-class battleship. There were gasps of awe and surprise. "The fleet is ready," Voss said grimly. 300 capital ships, each equipped with technology reverse-engineered from the alien craft that crashed in the Atacama Desert all those decades ago. Warp drives, gravitic shielding, plasma cannons. We've cracked them all. If and when hostile aliens make a play for Earth, we'll be ready. "What about the Galactic Empire?" the Secretary-General of the United Nations asked. "Our long-range probes have detected their scouts at the edge of our sector." "We have plans to deal with the Empire," Voss assured. "In fact, one of our top field agents has already been dispatched to infiltrate their frontier outpost and gather critical intel." Back on Thrallaxis Prime, Emperor Zaxxon was growing concerned about the reports on humanity's capabilities. If left unchecked, they could eventually pose a threat to imperial hegemony. He would have to act soon to nip this problem in the bud. But first, he needed more information. Little did Zaxxon know, even as he schemed, an EDF agent was preparing to breach his empire's secrets, a crucial step in humanity's ultimate plan to ensure their own survival and freedom in a dangerous galaxy. The hidden threat to the Galactic Empire's dominion was growing, and a clash of civilizations seemed inevitable. In a distant region of space, a nondescript freighter flickered into existence, having dropped out of warp speed. On board was Liam Hawkins, one of the EDF's most skilled operatives. As he guided the freighter toward the unsuspecting Imperial outpost, Hawkins mentally prepared himself for the dangerous mission ahead, one that could decide the fate of his entire species. Infiltration. The Imperial frontier outpost on the barren world of Zelos VI was a hive of activity. Massive resupply ships landed and took off at regular intervals, while squads of stormtroopers patrolled the perimeter, ever vigilant for signs of trouble. In the command center, Imperial officers monitored sensor feeds and communications channels, coordinating the Empire's efforts to secure its borders. Into this ordered chaos stepped Liam Hawkins, EDF operative extraordinaire. Clad in stolen Imperial technician garb and armed with forged identification and clearance codes, Hawkins slipped through the outpost's security with practiced ease. To the Imperials, he was just another cog in the vast machine of the Empire, beneath notice. But Hawkins had a critical mission. Somewhere in the outpost's central data core was information on the Empire's strategic plans, its military capabilities and disposition, and most importantly, its weaknesses. If he could secure that intelligence, it would give Earth a fighting chance when the inevitable conflict came. Using his purloined technician credentials, Hawkins gained access to a service duct that ran beneath the command center. He crawled through the cramped space, following a route he had memorized from stolen Imperial schematics. At last, he reached his target, the primary data conduit. Working quickly, Hawkins attached a sophisticated decryption and exfiltration device to the conduit. The machine, a marvel of human ingenuity and reverse-engineered alien tech, would hack into the Imperial data stream and siphon off the precious intelligence, transmitting it in a continuous tight beam burst back to Earth. As the device worked its magic, Hawkins kept a watchful eye on his surroundings. Imperial cybersecurity was formidable, and it was only a matter of time until they detected the intrusion. He had to hold out until all the data had been transmitted. Suddenly, alarms began to blare throughout the outpost. Hawkins tensed, ready for a fight, but the Imperial chatter over his stolen comlink indicated the alert wasn't about him. A ship had been detected leaving the system on an unauthorized vector. The Imperials were mobilizing to intercept. Hawkins felt a surge of hope. That ship had to be his extraction, dispatched by the EDF to pick him up once the data theft had been detected. All he had to do was reach the exfiltration point, and he'd be home free. He checked the decryption device. The data transmission was complete. Time to move. Blaster fire erupted in the corridors as Hawkins fought his way out of the command center. Stormtroopers fell before his precisely aimed shots. He had to admire Imperial training and equipment, but he had the edge in skill and determination. Bursting out onto the landing pad, Hawkins spotted his ride, an innocuous-looking freighter hovering just beyond the perimeter. He sprinted for it, dodging blaster bolts and returning fire as the Imperial forces closed in. At the last moment, he leaped for the freighter's open cargo ramp, his momentum carrying him inside. The ramp slammed shut, and the ship rocketed into the sky, outpacing the Imperial pursuers. They had done it. The intel was secure. But even as Hawkins allowed himself a moment of satisfaction, he knew the real fight was just beginning. The Empire now realized that Earth was more than just another primitive civilization to be conquered. They were a real threat, and the Imperials would be coming for them in force. Light years away, in the heart of the Empire, a grim-faced Emperor Zaxxon studied the reports of the Zelos VI incursion. The Earthers had been busy, he mused. To have penetrated Imperial security so easily spoke of a level of technological and martial capability far beyond what he had assumed. This could not stand. Zaxxon turned to his advisors, his mind churning with dark strategies. The invasion plans would need to be accelerated. Earth would learn the price of defiance, and the Galactic Empire would once more assert its dominance. The galaxy would tremble before the coming storm, the calm before the storm. Emperor Zaxxon paced the grand strategic planning room, his dark robes billowing behind him. The cavernous chamber was a hive of activity, with Imperial military officers and advisors clustered around holo-displays showing troop deployments, fleet movements, and logistical supply chains. At the center of it all stood Grand Admiral Thrain, the Emperor's most trusted military strategist. "Your Majesty," Thrain said, bowing deeply as Zaxxon approached, "our forces are mobilizing as we speak. The Earth invasion fleet will be ready to depart within a standard galactic cycle." Zaxxon studied the holo-displays, his brow furrowed in thought. "This business with the human infiltration of our Zelos VI outpost troubles me. Thrain, These Earthers are proving far more capable than we anticipated. Thrain nodded grimly. Indeed, Your Majesty. But rest assured, the might of the Galactic Empire will crush them swiftly and decisively. They may have stolen our secrets, but they cannot hope to stand against the full weight of our military. I want them made an example of, Thrain, Zaxxon growled. I want the galaxy to see what happens to those who dare defy us. When we are finished, Earth will be a blasted, lifeless husk, and the humans will be slaves or corpses. It will be done, Your Majesty, Thrain assured, his eyes glinting with anticipation of the coming conquest. But even as the Imperial war machine began to churn, back on Earth, the EDF was also preparing for the inevitable conflict. In secret shipyards hidden in the asteroid belt and the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, the Black Fleet was being brought to full readiness. Admiral Nora Voss stood on the bridge of her flagship, the EDS Retribution, watching as her crew ran through pre-combat checks and drills. The intel brought back by Liam Hawkins had proved invaluable. They now knew the size and disposition of the Imperial invasion force and had a good idea of their battle plans. Admiral, we're being hailed by Earth Central Command, her comms officer reported. It's the Secretary General. Voss nodded. On screen, the image of the Secretary General appeared on the bridge view screen. She looked tired and strained, the weight of the world on her shoulders. Admiral Voss, she said without preamble, I'll get right to it. We've made contact with the Galactic Empire through diplomatic channels. We told them we're ready to negotiate, to find a peaceful solution. Voss raised an eyebrow. And their response? The Secretary General's expression told the story. They flatly refused. Emperor Zaxxon delivered an ultimatum: unconditional surrender or annihilation. He's not interested in diplomacy. Voss took a deep breath. She had expected as much, but it was still a blow. War, it seemed, was inevitable. Understood, Madam Secretary, she said. The EDF will do what must be done. Earth will not fall on our watch. As the transmission ended, Voss turned to her crew. You heard it, people. The talk is over. It's time to show the Empire what humanity is made of. To your stations and prepare for battle. The bridge erupted into purposeful activity as the crew readied themselves for the fight of their lives. In the viewing ports, the stars glittered cold and distant, silent witnesses to the coming storm. Across the solar system, the Black Fleet formed up, powerful engines flaring to life, weapons systems charging. On Earth, in hidden bunkers and command centers, leaders and generals planned and strategized, preparing for all contingencies. In the depths of space, the Imperial invasion force gathered like a dark tide, an armada of conquest poised to sweep over the unsuspecting Earth and bring it under the heel of Emperor Zaxxon. The galaxy held its breath, poised on the brink. The calm before the storm was ending, and the tempest of war was about to be unleashed. The fate of worlds would soon be decided in the fire and fury of battle, as two mighty civilizations clashed in a contest for survival and supremacy. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Voss steeled herself for what was to come. She knew many would die in the days ahead on both sides, but she also knew that humanity would not go down without a fight. They would show the Empire and the watching galaxy the true strength and resilience of the human spirit. Come what may, Earth would stand. Surprise attack. The Imperial invasion fleet dropped out of hyperspace on the edge of Earth's solar system, a vast armada of warships, troop transports, and supply vessels. At the heart of the fleet was the Emperor's flagship, the ISD Dominion, a massive dreadnought bristling with weapons and shielding. On its bridge stood Grand Admiral Thrain, his face set in a grim mask of determination. All ships, battle formation, Thrain ordered, his voice booming through the fleet-wide comm. Advance on the Earth system. Prepare to engage any resistance. The fleet surged forward, the smaller ships forming a defensive perimeter around the larger battleships and carriers. They expected an easy victory, a primitive species cowering before the might of the Galactic Empire. They were wrong. As the Imperial fleet crossed the orbit of Neptune, alarm klaxons suddenly blared across the Dominion's bridge. "Admiral," a sensor officer cried. "Multiple warp signatures detected. They're right on top of us." Thrain whirled, his eyes widening in shock as the tactical displays lit up with hundreds of new contacts. Ships were appearing out of nowhere, sleek vessels of alien design that seemed to shimmer into existence as they dropped their cloaks. It was the Earth Defense Fleet, the Black Fleet, finally revealing itself in all its hidden might. Evasive maneuvers. Thrain roared. All ships, engage the enemy. But it was too late. The EDF ships were already among them, their powerful weapons tearing into the Imperial formation. Plasma beams and gravitic torpedoes ripped through shields and hulls, while swarms of Earth fighters danced around the lumbering Imperial warships, picking off turrets and engines with precision strikes. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Nora Voss calmly directed the battle, her fleet moving with a coordination and skill that belied their relative newness to space warfare. They had drilled for this, planned for every contingency, and now it was paying off. "Concentrate fire on their command ships," Voss ordered, "and launch boarding parties to take out their shield generators. We need to crack them open." As the battle raged, strike teams from the EDF's elite Void Commando units breached the hulls of key Imperial vessels, storming through corridors and compartments in brutal close-quarters combat. The Imperial stormtroopers were formidable opponents, but the Void Commandos had the advantage of surprise and superior technology. Bit by bit, the Imperial fleet began to crumble under the onslaught. Ships exploded into fireballs or drifted helplessly, their systems crippled. The Dominion, the mighty Imperial flagship, found itself surrounded, pounded by a relentless barrage from the Retribution and its escorts. On the Dominion's bridge, warning sirens screamed and consoles sparked and smoked from overloads. Grand Admiral Thrain clung to a support strut as his ship shuddered under the impacts. He could scarcely believe it. His glorious conquest had turned into a massacre. The primitives of Earth, those upstart humans, were decimating his fleet. "Admiral," a desperate voice crackled over the comm. "Our shields are failing. Hull breaches on decks 17 through 42. We can't take much more of this." Thrain gritted his teeth, his mind racing. He had to salvage something from this debacle. Surely the Emperor would understand. "All ships," he barked into the fleet-wide channel, "disengage and regroup at Rally Point Epsilon. We'll regroup and counterattack." But even as he gave the order, he knew it was futile. The Earth fleet had them beaten, outmaneuvered and outfought. As his battered ships limped away from Earth, harried all the way by implacable human pursuers, Thrain could only wonder how it had all gone so wrong. And in the depths of space, a small, unmarked vessel watched the battle unfold, recording everything. On board, a figure smiled in the shadows. The galaxy was about to change, and the hidden players who had long shaped events from behind the scenes were ready to make their move, turning the tide. The Galactic Empire reeled in the aftermath of its disastrous defeat at Earth. Never before had the Imperial fleet been so humbled, and by a species they had considered primitive and beneath their notice. Emperor Zaxxon was furious, his rage shaking the very foundations of his palace on Thrallaxis Prime. How could this happen? He bellowed at his cowering advisors and generals. How could we have been so blindsided by these humans? None dared answer, fearing the Emperor's wrath. But in the shadows, whispers began to circulate. Whispers of an ancient power, long thought lost to myth and legend, that had been guiding humanity's ascent from behind the scenes. The Watchers, they were called in hushed tones, the hidden masters of the galaxy. But the Empire had no time for myths and legends. They had a war to win. And so, even as Earth celebrated its victory, and the EDF consolidated its gains, the Imperial war machine began to grind back into motion. New fleets were mustered, drawn from the far reaches of the Empire's vast territory. Shipyards and factories went into overdrive, churning out warships and weapons at a breakneck pace. And leading this revitalized imperial force was a new figure, one whose name would soon strike fear into the hearts of humans across the stars. Grand Admiral Zera, the Emperor's Wrath. Zera was a tactical genius, a master of warfare who had honed her skills in the Empire's many conquests. She studied the battle reports from Earth, analyzing the human tactics and technology, searching for weaknesses to exploit. And she found them. The Empire's new fleet was a thing of terrible beauty, a sleek, deadly force designed specifically to counter the EDF's advantages. New weapons, such as the graviton dissimulator and the quantum torpedo, were developed to break through human shields and armor. Zera drilled her crews relentlessly, forging them into a weapon as sharp and unyielding as the edge of a blade. And then, when all was ready, the Empire struck back. The Second Battle of Earth was a titanic clash, a furious maelstrom of fire and destruction that lit the stars. The Empire's new weapons and tactics took a heavy toll on the EDF, and Zera's brilliant stratagems ran rings around the human defenders. Admiral Nora Voss found herself hard-pressed, her fleet fighting desperately to hold the line against the Imperial onslaught. The EDF fought with courage and tenacity, but they were outmatched. Slowly, inexorably, the Empire pushed them back, taking control of the outer solar system, then the asteroid belt, then the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. As the situation grew more dire, Earth's leaders contemplated a terrible choice. If they could not hold the solar system, they might have to resort to the Omega Protocol, a last-ditch plan to ensure the survival of the human species, even at the cost of Earth itself. But Admiral Voss had one last card to play. In a daring gambit, she rallied her battered fleet for a final, all-out assault on the Imperial command ship, the ISD Imperator, where Grand Admiral Zera directed the battle. It was a desperate plan, a near-suicide mission. But it was also Earth's only hope. In a blinding flash of warp jumps and searing weapons fire, the EDF's remaining ships hurled themselves at the Imperator, focusing all their might on cracking its formidable defenses. The battle was brutal and bloody, with losses heavy on both sides. But in the end, through sheer grit and determination, the EDF broke through. Void Commando teams stormed the Imperator, fighting their way to the bridge in a hail of blaster fire and explosions. In the chaos, Admiral Voss herself confronted Grand Admiral Zera in single combat, a titanic clash of wills and skills. The duel was fierce, but in the end, Voss emerged victorious, striking down the Emperor's wrath. With Zera's fall, the Imperial battle line wavered and then crumbled. Deprived of their brilliant leader, the Imperial forces fell into disarray, and the EDF pressed their advantage. In a series of swift, hard-hitting engagements, they drove the Empire back, reclaiming the solar system bit by bit. The war was not over, not by a long shot. The Empire was still a mighty foe, with vast resources and a burning desire for vengeance. But Earth had shown the galaxy that humanity would not go quietly into the night, that they would fight tooth and nail for their right to exist. As the dust settled and the fires of battle cooled, Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of her flagship, gazing out at the stars. She knew that this was only the beginning, that there were greater challenges and dangers yet to come. But she also knew that humanity would face them head-on, united and unyielding, for Earth and for the future. And in the depths of space, the Watchers smiled, their long-laid plans coming to fruition. The pieces were in motion, the great game was afoot, and humanity, the sleeping giant, was finally awake. The galaxy would never be the